Well, Phil, disaster has struck. The menu is incomplete at Club World Cup. They no longer have any hummus or any rigoni on the menu. I don't know what people are going to eat.
Yeah, Club León apparently is owned by Pachuca's group, that same group. And so
Hmm.
Pachuca is already in it. So apparently you can't have two teams with the same ownership group in the Club World Cup. So I guess say if Arsenal and the Colorado Rapids were to both qualify for the Club World Cup, only one could be in. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, or I mean, Santos Laguna and Atlas are owned by the same ownership
Hmm.
group, so
They
same
are.
kind of thing. But I love Santos Laguna, but I don't know that Santos Laguna and Atlas would end up in a Club World Cup at the same time. I just don't
Right.
see that going that way.
But Leon and Pachuca were supposed to do that. Apparently Leon is still going to appeal this. Don't know that they'll necessarily be successful. Apparently, it was a Costa Rican side, Alajuelense, who was wanting FIFA to enforce the multi-club rules and were willing to take the case to the Court of Arbitration for Sport if action was not taken. That is from the Athletic article, but also from the club statement. So it sounds like maybe they were the team behind this. But
Yeah.
so I guess I don't know how much Club World Cup you were planning to watch. So, and I don't know that it's necessarily going to be the boon that maybe organizers think it's going to be. I mean, I think the diehards will probably watch it, but I don't know if it's going to be necessarily the gateway drug to next year's World Cup for a lot of American fans. And disappointment there is that they won't get to see James, or as I'm sure many of them would know him as, based on just their first time, James.
Yeah, I might go to Seattle to watch Inter Milan play. I imagine it'll be the cheapest and easiest way for me to see
Mhm.
my Serie A team play live and in person because I just don't see them selling out a stadium in Seattle. I just don't see that happening.
That's also a game that matters. Matters is doing a lot of work here because it is
Yeah,
Club World Cup, but it's not like one of those summer tours where you get to see all the backup players and spend $100 and fit into a giant stadium, maybe too big for soccer. Although Seattle, they've got a combo football soccer stadium, actually works quite well for soccer, even though it's definitely large.
yeah. Once Austin makes it to the Club World Cup, that's when it becomes a real competition.
Emergency podcast. Better did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, hurry up, shut up, hurry up, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast, where we talk about all the Austin FC emergencies. And I guess the first one we have to talk about is something that happened on Tuesday. Not really an emergency per se, but got a little bit more intel on the All-Star festivities that are going to be happening. And Moisés, you were there, so tell us what your experience was. Of course, everything kind of got blown the hour before and the day before about the Liga MX All Stars being the opponent once again, which is certainly better than insert big European team here, but also just kind of thoughts about Andy and Tuesday and what he said and what you surmised from everything.
Well, friend of the show, Andy Loughnane, I'll call him whether he wants to be denoted that way or not.
He says he
He
listens.
he says he has listened. I'll believe it when I see it. The receipts will be how quickly he reacts to being mentioned on this. He had his exclusive blown, but he didn't have another exclusive blown, and that is that there is now a sponsor for the
Mm.
southwest gate at the stadium, Stonegate Pharmacy. They have a sponsor with gate in the name. I'd like to give credit to Ethan Finley, who's on their corporate partnerships team now, because I don't know who else to give credit for this kind of synergistic work. So that was an announcement that they did. They didn't hold a press scrum for it. That's fine. I'm sure they probably got a couple of people who brought their roadies to the Southwest Gate reliably before games to show up and toast them or something.
Now it's the Stone Gate.
Now it's the Stone
So
Gate. To your point, having had that blown, more by sources say it's going to be this, and then the official league press release dropping an hour before. Andy very much had the bearing of, well, I'm here to tell you stuff that you already know. So
Yeah.
Here's stuff that you already know.
Right.
I wasn't bullying him by asking him stuff I gathered either he didn't know or that he wasn't allowed to tell us necessarily. It was good that we got at least some indications that beyond who the opponent is, when the dates were, same days of the week that it always is, the skills challenge of the game itself. But the indication being that the action is very much going to be centered downtown, including some sort of a celebration of soccer. There'll be stuff to do downtown, which for folks who find the stadium a bit far north for them, based on where they live in Austin, that'll be nice. I look forward to hearing more about it when the league actually lets us know about it.
That's pretty typical. Yeah.
Yeah.
For example, when Minnesota hosted it in 22, there were a lot of activations downtown because the stadium's over in St. Paul. It's on their light rail. You can get to the light rail stop. And of course, that stop is also near best bar in the world, Blackheart. But a lot of the action was taking place far from the stadium. So that's a normal thing. And that's also something when we were at the Unbearable press conference in Antone's last year, that's something that they revealed as well. They had hinted that there was going to be a lot happening downtown. So it doesn't come as a surprise, but like you're saying, it's good for people that don't necessarily like to trek that far north, but do it anyway.
I also asked about merch and the jerseys, and Andy, president of the club, has not seen the jersey yet. This is an incredible level of secrecy that the league is keeping. Once we see this revolutionary first time in Austin All-Star jersey, I'm sure that it will blow minds. I just hope that it's not boring is the thing. I mean, MLS All-Stars versus League MX All-Stars is deflating to some folks. I think it's always an interesting matchup, and also something that is not primed to be as much, here's Arsenal's B squad absolutely wrecking the MLS. That is less interesting to me.
And everybody else, I would imagine.
Yeah, pretty much. But I'm interested to see what happens when it comes to all-star based merch, because one of the biggest jealousies that I find myself wrapped up in is anytime I either wear or display that all-star scarf they gave us at the announcement at Antone's, because people want that scarf. Because it's properly good Verde and black merchandise. There are a lot of locals. There are a lot of locals who want to and would buy that. And I don't know who at the league needs to hear that, but they need to hear it loud and clear, because people are going to be salty if they don't get to buy that scarf.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And right now the website doesn't have a sponsor on it, so we don't know if it's presented by Target. We don't know if we're going to get the Minnesota United style Target logo on the front of the jersey like they had last year, but also, and in previous years. And then also it looks like, so the page just has Austin Verde on it, and then it's got black, and there's a star pattern, kind of a lighter black and darker black kind of motif. So I imagine it might be in that family, in that area, but that's all they've really dropped so far in terms of clues for that. But it is 4 months away. So like, I think they probably have to know by now. I would imagine that they're not scrambling to make last minute jerseys, or at least I hope that that's not what would be happening.
I think a piece of what's at play with this is rolling back to last year. Messi was injured. They definitely wanted Messi to play. They very much want Messi to play every time they can, because any jersey that Messi wears is an instant big seller. So it could be that last year's jersey fell under a held over agreement with Target. And it could be that money changing hands, they were looking at trying to get a better pile of cash for the front of shirt sponsor. Maybe they go Audi, maybe they go somewhere else. Maybe they tie it in with a local sponsor and try to juice local club sponsors for big money. So maybe Stonegate Pharmacy's in there. Maybe Yeti's in there. Any number of different options could be in there. So I guess we'll see. But a piece of that is Messi going to stay uninjured before All-Star this year?
Assuming he makes the team, which of course he's going to get voted in.
Yeah, we'll see. He will get voted in. We'll see if he does, that young, scrappy up-and-comer. Yeah, a piece of it is if they're trying to crack a sponsorship deal and they are promising Messi being on the menu, then that sponsor can look at last year and go, yeah, but what if he does his leg and can't play? Then where are we at? Then what am I paying for? So they have that unfortunate thing going against them in that sales conversation, if they are indeed, and this is entirely speculative based on absolutely no sourcing, if they are trying to land a bigger pile of money from a sponsor, there is that possibility that Messi won't play, and that does make a difference.
Right, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. But again, can't really control that. Obviously, getting him here would be great. That would be fun to see him play. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I love the skills challenge and I love the spectacle of it all. And yeah, to me, it is fun to see the best MLS players go up against the best Liga MX players and see how they fare in both the skills competition and in the real game as well. And then obviously we had a Thursday press conference as well, which neither of us were able to get to as things developed. It was on Zoom, which is in theory better, but also day job. Did get some news out of there. Did learn that Julio Cascante, it sounds like he's day to day. Don't know that he'll start necessarily, or even, I mean, he'll probably make the lineup, is my guess. Probably would only be utilized if it was absolutely necessary, which it may be because there's only one healthy center back right now, and that's Brendan Hines-Ike.
Phil, yeah. I've got literal breaking news from my inbox.
Oh.
Antonio Gomez, Riley Thomas, and Nico Van Ryn, all three signed to short-term agreements. Leave it to the front office to contradict what you say on a Saturday as we start recording. So there we go. This is why the recording of the podcast is always an emergency in and of itself. It's a form of triage.
We knew about Antonio Gomez. We knew about Riley Thomas because Nico had hinted about them. Van Ryn's a little bit of a surprise, but again, not really, because certainly, I mean, I think he, like we talked about earlier, might be the most capable of the Verdo center backs to come and step in. But of course, there are only limited short-term agreements. So at some point, if you want to ring that bell more than 4 times with 2 appearances out of those 4 call-ups, you have to do something like a supplemental deal. And of course, if there's an international spot involved, then that makes it complicated. That's not something that they want to spend on. And then the other complication here, of course, is Leo Väisänen, who is out on international duty, may not be returning because there is a Swedish club, BK Häcken, which is apparently finalizing the deal with Austin. That's not Bogert official yet, but there are other rumor mongers that are talking about that. And it seems at this point credible enough to where I think that it's probably going to happen. So again, assuming Cascante's back and healthy, then you'll have him and you'll have Hines-Ike and you'll have
the second team boys.
You'll have Svatak when he comes back from international and fill-ins with some of the second teams. But to me, it does seem, again, and the window closes April 23rd. And so there's still time to sign somebody. And Matt Hedges is out there. He's interested in coming back to the league. He's actually interested in coming back to Dallas. But
he's way too busy playing for the Des Moines Menace, his true favorite club in his heart.
His true calling. Yeah.
His true calling
is to be part of that team of spry young broadcasters.
Well, a couple random things, just entirely randomly. Someone I know was on a flight from Austin to Dallas, and Roto was on that flight in first class. And you know why somebody who lives in Austin goes to Dallas in first class? To catch a flight to Europe. So I am assuming that either as part of finalizing the deal with BK Häcken or to try to finalize some other dealings that might have to happen before that window closes, that's what would take Roto to Europe, not vacation.
Pure speculation.
But
fun speculation.
But fun speculation to be had. And I feel like that guy never stops moving. He is the shark in the front office who just keeps moving. And if Väisänen is on his way out, he is not eager to have things in panic mode where he is having to use up all of these short-term agreements right at the beginning of the season and then not have those options in this position later in the season.
Right. Because what's the first thing that happened when Roto got here? Matt Hedges got signed to a pretty hefty contract to be center back insurance, essentially. So that happened as he was getting on board with the club. So has made it clear that move was not his, that other early moves were not his. So making the difference between that kind of deal making, and I am air quoting that, and the actual deal making that Roto
no
was doing.
more panic signings from the man's life, from the man's mouth.
But again, if you have another center back injury, then you have no subs, even when Svatak comes back, right? So you have to either play Hines-Ike, Cascante or Spatak, two of those three for present. Speculation, maybe Ilya Sanchez plays center back tomorrow. Gallagher joked about it in the press conference, talked about he had to play center back for a while when that US Open game, that marathon game between Austin and San Antonio happened in 22, which was all kinds of crazy. Didn't necessarily think that he would be good at center back again, but certainly the man can play a lot of positions. That's kind of part of what came up as part of that on Thursday. And so that is, again, possibilities out there in terms of players who can plug in. But again, they're not true natural center backs. We suffered through that in 2023. And I don't think we want to suffer through that again, but that's where we're shaping up right now.
I mean, do you remember just a few short weeks ago when a bunch of the chatter was, does Austin need all these center backs? I mean, Austin's lousy with center backs. They can stand to lose a couple. This seems like a lot of center backs. Doesn't seem like a lot of center backs anymore, does it?
Nope. Sure doesn't.
I feel like I'm a little bit more optimistic, to go back to the theme of last episode. I'm not that worried because it seems that it is being taken as seriously as it needs to be taken, with the response not what we got a bit of last year and the year before was throwing up the hands. Just we'll figure it out. In this case, it's not ideal. We're working on it. We've got this. And now that the vast majority of everything that remains at the club is very much out of Roto's mind and his hands in terms of the work that went in, especially if, as is heavily rumored and expected, Leo Väisänen gets offloaded. This is his roster. He's got to make it work.
Yeah. And that's the thing. This is a move that I'm sure he's itching to make because Väisänen is, as I pointed out in the article this morning, one of only two TAM players left with the team and arguably has the worst contract of anybody because Conte's a TAM player also, but Goals Added loves him as a statistic. And there's definitely things he does. Väisänen, again, I mean, he showed abilities, but he's also had some tough nagging injuries, which again, if you are from BK Haken listening to this podcast, just I hope you didn't hear that part. Earmuffs on the talk about Leo and his deficiencies. Yeah, just concerns though about him never really maybe 100% gelling, and maybe being in Scandinavia is a better fit for him. Maybe that is kind of a better place for him to be and develop, and then Roto can get a center back that is not requiring TAM level payouts to get, because certainly he can do that. And certainly you can get somebody in that 300 to 500,000 range who can be a solid MLS starter. It's something that he's done. It's something that he can probably do again, I would imagine.
Yeah. Not to eulogize, but to memorialize Leo's time at the team. I think temperament wise, as a player, as a human being, really good guy, really decent, really deeply felt some of those worst losses. They gave him to us at one of those post games there was a really bruising loss for them. You could tell that it really landed on him. He did not put up a brave face. It was brutal on the guys. And I think a lot of people can appreciate hard work, even though it didn't save things. It didn't have a miraculous effect, that kind of thing. As soon to be or actual former players go, I feel like the club could have done far worse in terms of attitude and temperament. And it's just, sometimes it's just real unfortunate because he looked real good right at the outset. And then that recurring injury set in. And that's just kind of the way that it goes sometimes.
And plantar fascia injuries are no fun and they take a long time. Yeah. Don't wish that on anybody. Yeah.
Nope.
All right. Anything else then that kind of jumps out here? Let's go ahead and talk, I guess, a little bit about no goals from open play in 4 matches, the thing that we're not worried about because goals are coming at any time.
They're saving them for a daytime Sunday game, Phil. That's what it is. That's what the secret plan is. And we just need to trust the secret plan.
And so got a little bit of that on Thursday. So Nico said, I think it's a process. We would love to be already in the right spot, but we just need a little more time. And sometimes teams settle right away. And with some teams, it takes a little bit more time. I think on the defensive side, we've settled very well, although I'm curious to see what happens with the cornerback situation on Sunday. I would agree with him there that they have done well on the defensive side. On the offensive side, it is true we're taking shorter steps to get to where we want to be. And then Gallagher talked about this as well. He was the course, the player on Thursday, where he talked about we're trying to implement new systems and build new connections, pointed out that Vasquez and Uzuni only played for the first time together just 2 weeks ago. So he said it's not going to gel just like that. And I know fans obviously want to see goals on the return on the investments that we made, but I see it every day in training and everyone else does. Oh God, that sounds a little familiar. So I think there's a quiet confidence among us that we will start scoring in bags and bunches. I love that phrase. So just trying to keep a calm head and not worry too much. I think what's helping is if you look at the performances, the team actually has been playing really well, and maybe I'm biased, but I feel the team's creating chances, getting into good positions to score, defending well, playing as a unit. And the next thing, obviously, to come is the goal. So hopefully this weekend. Indeed, John Gallagher. Thoughts on any of that?
I think you make expert deployment of the, well, we've heard that before, which it is fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you, is I think the stage that we're at. So this is, okay, let's see if that bears out. If it does not, shame on them. First one was on us. But was it on us? Did we actually believe it the first time? I don't know that we did. This time, I feel like a lot of the goodwill that's been engendered is a reason why people are willing to go, okay, let's see what happens on Sunday. Let's see what happens on Sunday.
Right. And this isn't a case of Rodney Retta's alleged king of practice, like banging in goals and in training sessions that we never got to see, and then looking completely lost during actual games. I do feel better about this. And again, something that I put up on Tuesday, I talked about shot creating actions, and basically Verde is top 6 in the league in that currently. And that's a statistic where basically it's the 2 moves that come before a shot. So this could be progressing the ball, this could be a pass, this could be getting fouled, all sorts of things that basically set your team up to at least have an attempt. And again, the shots have not been terribly accurate, which is actually something that they did well the first part of 24. So that is a little bit of a concern. They are still shooting a lot from outside the box. But again, they're being, I think, a little bit more aggressive than they were last year, particularly in road matches. We saw what happened in those early road matches, and even later in the season with, we're just going to settle for a draw. And it's going to be of the 0-0 ugly variety a lot of the time here. So enjoy that, fans. I think that this is a lot better. They are playing defense. They are playing a stingy defense. They are doing really well with that. I think they are still leading the league in expected goals against. That could potentially change this weekend, because even though Chucky Lozano is out, San Diego has plenty of good players that are in, and they are undefeated. But again, it is the furthest that they are going to travel. I don't want to say that it's necessarily their first big test, but certainly playing on the road Sunday afternoon in Austin with fans clamoring for goals
against a team that beat LAFC starters.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So there is that thing that they did, and sets up to be, I think, a really fun, interesting match. I was really hoping that Lozano was going to be healthy just because I wanted to see him play in person, but that probably works out better for Austin, even though Andres Dreyer is having a fantastic start of the season so far. And when I was doing the All-Star article, I went ahead and did like a 2 early projection of who was going to get voted in as starters. And I think Dreyer might actually do that. I think he might surprise some people as a midfield selection to do that.
I mentioned some of this to you a few days ago, but there are always things bigger than football. And there are bigger things going on in the world than football at all times. And when looking at mentality, where people's heads are at, one of the things that contributes to people being out in space a little bit, out not performing at the usual standard that people expect, are those things bigger than football that happen out in the world. And one of the things that I mentioned last season, when people were wondering, why is Alexander Svatak not playing? Why is he not playing? And the news out of Ukraine having fallen back into the background for a lot of people were not aware of the fact that right around the time he joined the team, the town he played for, Dnipro, was undergoing direct bombardment by Russian forces. And when your hometown is getting pummeled into ash, maybe high performance and the psychiatric side of things comes in and goes, maybe now is not necessarily the best time to have him playing, both for his mental health and for his performance. And that made sense to me. However, there will always be the opinion of, well, screw it, he signed up to play football. Okay, great. Do you really want him playing football when that's where his head's at? And something that I don't think has gotten as much mention as it necessarily deserves is the series of things that Dani Pereira must be having to contend with when literally a professional Venezuelan footballer is
Yeah.
among the people who got deported to an overseas prison. And my heart goes out to Dani and his family. They don't know what's next. And
Mhm.
that is the experience of a lot of people who
Yeah.
are or have been on refugee visas, who have been
Mhm.
dealing with that process, where if a quote unquote mistake can be made about someone with a similar detail profile to Dani,
Mhm.
I can totally get his head being in at least a couple of other places and
Right. Yeah.
having difficulties focusing. And I hope that, and frankly expect that the club is probably doing everything that they can to make sure that that they're doing whatever could be done for making sure that he's got the support that he needs from within the club.
Yeah.
And seeing and knowing the relationship that all these players have with each other, I know that his teammates have his back. I understand more when thinking about it through that lens than I think I was previously expressing, at least publicly, about where he was, where his head was at, because the second game in a row of his performance just being atypical for Dani, I get it. And I hope that he is getting the sleep that he needs and doing whatever it is he needs. One of the weird things that helps me when dealing with trauma is playing Tetris, which
Mhm.
there are apparently scientific studies for. I wasn't part of them. I feel like I was. Whatever it is that he's having to do to cope, that as long as it's healthy, I hope
Right.
he's giving himself the space that he needs
Mhm.
to decompress, because it's a lot. It's a
Right.
lot what's going on right now.
Yeah, and again, it'll be interesting to see if he ends up starting again, if he ends up on the bench, what the center back situation is going to do with that. But yeah, certainly it's a really strange situation, getting stranger all the time. And that Venezuelan football player, for example, one of the things that quote unquote identified him as a gang member was a tattoo, which actually turned out to be a Real Madrid tattoo, I believe, or something that was based on a Real Madrid tattoo. So not a gang, obviously. We don't
Nope.
like Real Madrid, but that's completely different from,
Yeah.
what maybe people in charge there think. Yeah, it's a really strange situation. We're going to see some interesting developments happening as we host the Club World Cup, as we host the World Cup, as we co-host the World Cup actually with Canada and Mexico. For a lot of people, soccer is an escape from politics and escape from just the greater pressures of the world. It's definitely something that I enjoy in part for that, but that's just seeming to get more and more infused as we march closer to these kind of high profile events that is going to put the US on a world stage.
Yeah. And there are national rivalries. US Mexico is a great example
Mhm.
where different people have different varying levels of seriousness with which they take it. And what to some people is taking something seriously is something that to me takes it into the realm of straining credibility and credulity of
Mhm.
how absolutely insane people can be about something in poisonous, toxic ways. Where it's one thing for something to be a rivalry, but for something to generate actual enmity, racial overtones, and all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
that ain't it. Football is an escape from some of the worst things, but it is inherently political. It is inherently about the identities of these players and who they are and what they represent and the things that they have to surmount and triumph over, and things that, playing half a world away from their home country in some cases, they're all dealing with something different. Some of them who are from this country dealing with the political situation in this country
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
contending with the impression that the world stage has of them. Does
Mhm.
being an American player affect somebody's ability to move to Europe at this point? Probably
Right,
does.
right.
That's the thing, is those issues are never divorced completely from football, but it's sure going to make a lot of these games harder to act as that kind of escape, as that kind of
Mhm.
elevated freedom from all of the stuff that we keep checking social media feeds and slapping our foreheads over.
Although God bless that Panamanian player for, involving Thierry Henry into his goal celebration. It was tough to see the U.S. lose and lose to Panama, who has been this kind of burgeoning rival in CONCACAF. Obviously, some weird undertones and stuff happening there. But to just see that kind of moment of pure joy, of course, it was pure joy at the U.S.'s expense, but nevertheless, it was remarkable. If you have not seen that, I embedded that in the article this morning, the goal celebration. So you should definitely check that out. It's amazing. Yeah, like Henry is not sure what's happening, and then the guy's like celebrating at him, it looks like. but what he's saying is, you're my idol. And then there's big hugs and more Panamanian players come up. And this is, of course, on the little stage where Henry and Clint Dempsey and Marisa Dew and Kate Abdo are doing their, kind of pre-match, halftime, post-match stuff.
Kate Scott. She has a new last name, Kate Scott now.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, now I'm doing the Kate Scott thing because she corrects her own co-hosts on those shows because Jamie and Michael still occasionally call her Kate Abdo.
Right.
Sorry, I had to do the Kate Scott, Phil. I had to. She makes too good of an example.
Yeah, but it was great. I mean,
really
all of those co-hosts just kind of backed away. Clint was like, "Oh, I wondered if I should have called security," but clearly it was hugs and love and everything. And Henri just looked like he was absolutely flabbergasted that it was happening, but then delighted. I love that man so much, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. What a great ambassador for world football. Next Secretary General of the UN, Thierry Henry.
That'd be great. All right. Anything else we got to hit?
I don't think the UN. So. I do have one thing.
Okay. Gotcha.
Following the official remarks regarding All-Star, I did press Andy Loughnane about an incredibly serious matter that I think weighs very heavily on the minds of many people who follow Austin, and that is the lack of purchasability of Austin FC2 jerseys, which children have cried in the streets. People have said, please, sir, please, when can I buy my jersey, sir? And his official comment was that he wants to make the dreams of all Austin fans come true.
Oh, so okay.
It's not for lack of wanting. It seems to be the implication. He said if he said anything more, he would be in trouble. He Mourinho'd me. And I feel like, okay, fine. Let's see what can come of that. It's got to be either the league or Adidas or something. But he didn't say any of that. I'm not putting words in his mouth. But it is not for lack of his wanting those to be available for people. So man of the people, Andy Loughnane, wants to make everyone's dreams come true. So you heard it from him, folks. Leagues Cup, Open Cup, MLS Cup, all of them. That's what they're going to deliver for you this season.
All right. Yeah. And then, of course, Sunday, it's a day game. I could get used to these. I like these day games. I assume at some point I am going to be on the way to where we check in for media, walking past the Stone Gate. I now get to say that, which is fun. And it's a pharmacy. I don't like SciPlay. I was a little kind of mystified on what is SciPlay exactly. What is this thing that is now a gate? But no ambiguity about this. Excited for yet another sponsorship. I just chuckle at the Moon Tower over under on numbers of new sponsorships, and I thought, well, I'm going to pick the under because they certainly have done all their work for the year. Oh no! No! It is way over. No looking back. Sponsors galore. All right. Next week, it's going to be against the Purina gang, St. Louis City, our friends. It's going to be a match that's going to be up in that stadium that is sunken into the earth. I think it starts at street level and it goes like straight down a level. Still have not been in it. Curious about it. And Moisés, you were telling me something unusual about that particular game.
Yeah. So first teams play just after 1 o'clock, and then the Puppy Chow boys versus the Lil Trees play at 4:30 in the same place. So that's
cool.
They're gonna get to play on a nice chewed up pitch and maybe they'll just bring out a steamroller and flatten things out a bit.
Oh, that's right. That reminds me. Speaking of chewed up pitches, as we're recording this, we're a few hours from that Liga MX exhibition
that will leave Q2's pitch in beautiful shape for a Sunday afternoon game, I'm sure.
It will be magically repaired. I'm certain. Just steamroller and green paint and we're set. We're ready to play soccer.
That is like the worst thing I've ever heard in the history of the 7 years that I've been on this planet.